broadcasting from the studios of WKEN, where every day it's the weekend. It's the Ken Calvert Show with your host, Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Ken Calvert Show podcast, coming to you from the casual studios of WKEN, where every day it's the weekend. Well, let me start by saying I'm doing this podcast on Tuesday, November 20th, 2018. Got a good week ahead with my Detroit Lions having beat the Carolina Panthers this past Sunday. Let me say that again very slowly for you. The Detroit Lions beat Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers 21-20. So I got that going for me, which is nice. Today is actually cold, very cold. How cold? How cold is it, Ken? It's colder than a well digger's belt buckle. So that's how cold it is. I have another sports side note for you. I'm still marinating last night's 54-51 win by the Rams over the Chiefs. Now, by the way, I very seldom ever have a chance to use marinate as a verb in a sports comment, but by God, I decided I was going to throw that one out there. And of course, we all know that Bear Bryant said, defense wins championships. The famous line, offense sells tickets, defense wins championships. Not last night, but the Coliseum was indeed packed. Great game to watch. Up late last night, yes indeed. Thanksgiving week. Thanksgiving is coming up. That's a big one, right? Don't you think? Thanksgiving? I mean, obviously the dinner portion of it is great, but it's the Wednesday night. I always remember when I was younger, that Wednesday night, especially back in the college days, post-college years, or shortly thereafter, there would be a pub or two that we would gather at every Wednesday night, and we would just go for it. We would party like rock stars. So we have that to look forward to. It's Michigan-Ohio State week. So here we go. Coming up today, I have a classic in-studio interview that I did with the late, great Keith Jackson. He was in town for a game, and he was discussing, he also had a part in ABC's Sports Heroes of the Gridiron, and it was on CD-ROM. Oh, yes. Oh. Now, remember, this interview goes back to 1997. But if you don't mind, a couple of things first, okay? Okay. First of all, I want to tell you something. I have to admit, actually, that I have a TV or a radio on constantly. I don't play well with quiet. Most people really like to just be left alone in a quiet room so they can read or think or meditate. Not me. I need noise, man. Noise. And so that allows me to go a little observational on you, because it's either the radio or the TV, and I've mentioned before my absolute disdain for doorbells in any form of any advertising, radio or TV. If you have a dog, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now here's the question that I have for you as the holidays are creeping in, and we have the various advertising elements of the holidays, of course. You have the auto dealers, you have all of the various Target, Walmart, CVS, then you have your high-end stores, all that. Okay, I get that. A lot of people like to shop. Shopping downtown Detroit, a great destination now. But I have a question for you, and I'm very, very serious about this, and if you have, I would love for you to get in touch with me if you can. Have you ever gotten a new car for Christmas? Because these ads with really young, good-looking, I guess, damn rich couples looking out the window on Christmas morning at a brand new Lexus with a huge red bow on top and the look of, oh my God, it's perfect. I've always wanted it. Well, hell yeah, it would be. Really? Okay, now here's I got another one for you. Let me say this. I think because of the fact that I did voiceovers for a number of years, you tend to isolate your view on the product and the VL person and what they're selling, okay? Because I remember having to read the picture, as they call it. Anyway, there's another one out there where there's a guy who gets 2 new vehicles. Not one, but he gets 2. And I'm pretty sure it's for GMC. And it is America's most beautiful couple. Well, he gets the SUV for his wife, and he gets a badass pickup truck for himself. Well, the adorable part of this highly believable situational spot is that his wife wants the pickup. Well, he stammers a bit and says something like, no, and she's, I love it. No, I love it. No, honey, I love it. And then he says something like, well, okay, I like red. Well, dilly. Nice going. Ralphie, who broke the internet, right? I'm having a spirited debate with a buddy of mine about dilly. He hates the Bud Light dilly commercials, and I love them. I guess one of the reasons is because I'm not a craft beer guy. I appear to be in a really limited group these days.
Finish all your beer, young man. You'll get no whiskey for dessert. My Uncle Jack fell from his ladder, drunk as a skunk at his work one day, broke his back, bruised his bladder, switched a beer, now he's okay. Hey! Senator Flynn was totally smashed, picked up a hooker on the streets one day. The cops gave chase, he swerved and crashed, switched the beer, now he's okay. How do you get your head to clear? Switch the beer. You don't have to go to AA. Switch the beer, you'll be okay. There we go. Party on and have no fear. Switch the beer. Stay away from the hard stuff. Switch the beer, it's strong enough. How do you get your head to clear? Switch the beer. You don't have to go to AA. You can switch the beer, you'll be okay. Switch the beer, you'll be okay. Switch the beer, you'll be okay. Switch the beer! When the bar's still spinning, the crowd is thinning, maybe it's time to go home. You're just a buck away from drinking all your pay. Maybe it's time to go home. You've been knocking them back down at the pub since early this morning. You were drunk at noon and you puked at 5. Maybe that's a warning. When you're dancing with a girl whose real name's Earl, maybe it's time to go home. It's starting to get light and there's no one to fight. Maybe it's time to go home. You should be home asleep, but you're passed out with the cows and sheep. Maybe it's time to go home. Maybe it's time for me to go home. Good night!
My friends, it's officially Ohio State Week here in the great state of Michigan this Saturday, November 24th at 12 noon on Fox. Michigan will be going to Columbus to take on the Buckeyes in the Horseshoe. The winner is heading to the Big Ten playoffs to take on Northwestern and a chance to play for a national title. And I believe the play-by-play announcers will be Gus Johnson, who I believe is a UD grad here in Detroit. Pretty sure of that. Along with Joel Klatt. My all-time favorite, and maybe I'm dating myself, but I can't help that, obviously, was Keith Jackson and partner Bob Griese. Keith Jackson passed away on January 12th of this year. Whoa, Nelly, say it ain't so. I think Arkansas versus Mississippi, Keith said something like, them hogs and rebels been fighting down there a long time. Keith did a ton of Michigan-Ohio State games. Here's one for you. A nice kick, got a little wind under it. Look at that. Oh, my goodness. One-man debate. Goodbye. Hello, Heisman. Okay, I tried. Now, that would be Michigan's Desmond Howard along that hurried path. Remember that 93-yard punt return against Ohio State? The year 1991. Gosh, Keith was so cool. He was just off the meter, man. He was kind of a tough interview, and he was not, he wasn't, I wouldn't say a lot of fun to be in the same room with, but boy, just being in his presence was mighty, mighty cool. So I caught up with Keith Jackson back in 1997. He has a compelling story about what you should do on a Friday night, and there's your compelling tease. All right, let me add this. What you should do on a Friday night if you visit Ann Arbor from out of town. Okay? Here's Keith Jackson, everybody. Enjoy. What a thrill it is for me. Keith Jackson joins us now. Keith, along with Bob Greasy, doing the Colorado-Michigan game this Saturday as we finally get our season underway. Keith, welcome.
Thank you, Ken. How are you?
Very, very well, sir. We're going to talk in just a moment about ABC Sports College Football Heroes of the Gridiron. It's a CD-ROM. It's available now. You are the voice of this CD-ROM, and you get some help from Bob Greasy and John Saunders. But before we go there, let's talk a little bit about Michigan this weekend. You enjoy coming back to the big house, don't you?
Love it. One of my favorite places. Always has been, going back to the days of Fritz Chrysler. It's always been a pleasure to come there, but I've oftentimes told people that when you go to Ann Arbor, you should go to the stadium on Friday night and walk in at 9:30 when it's still and quiet and just sit down and listen. Of all the places that has its own special personality, I think that old stadium does. And because maybe I'm a little goofy and I've been doing football for too long. But
I don't think so. I
think you can hear history, Ken. I really do.
Isn't that something?
It's a special place.
You know, people try and imitate you all the time. You must be bothered on occasion by people coming up going, he's a 350-pound corn-fed horse out of Muskegon, and he can flat out put the hurt on you. Does that get old after a while?
Yep.
Okay. Simply put, yep, it does. You work alongside a great guy in Bob Greasy, and the chemistry is certainly there, which is so important in that booth. That's a great relationship the two of you have going.
We have become good friends, there's no question. He's a very thorough fellow and from southern Indiana, and he's a special kind of guy because I've never seen him go into a game unprepared. I mean, he prepares today just like he did when he quarterbacked the Dolphins or worked at Purdue. And I really appreciate him for that because you have to do it if you're going to keep up.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about that preparation because some people think you just sit down and know the players and just start describing the action, but there's so much more to it than just that. You get into a hotel room, you get into town early, you meet with the coaches, the players, you look at the facility, you look at the schemes, you look at the rankings, and then you put it all together beautifully for us on Saturdays.
Well, you have done Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at home, and today is made a little easier than it used to be in the past, Ken, because you've got videotape now, and so I will have when I leave here be 6 videotapes laying on my desk, having come from various sources that I can sit down and look at, and I spent a little time this past summer with Lloyd Carr and some of the Michigan coaches. They stopped at the house up in British Columbia, and we had a great day together. So we know something about them already, obviously, and one of the things that's going to be kind of fun this week is we're going to have Bob Greasy working on his son's game as his son plays.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Well, we did it last year in the Ohio State game, and we treated it as impersonally as we could, and that was a conscious decision made by both of us. And this time, I think it'd be a waste if we don't treat it with a little more human understanding.
I agree.
I'm going to make a point to go down and tell Brian, before the game that don't worry about it. I'll take care of the old man. If he gets smart alecky, I'll just lock him out of the
booth. We're having a marvelous chat. I promise you we're going to go to the other aspect here in just a couple of moments. I was just going to have you quickly address the front-loading of these some of these powerhouses in terms of their schedule, playing just almost absurd opponents. Nebraska versus Akron. You take our Central Michigan University taking a thumping of 82-10 at the hands of Florida. Iowa versus Northern Iowa. I mean, why? And tell me it's not just the paycheck.
No, it is. It's payday. Absolutely, unquestionably, it's payday. That's the only reason they happen, because everybody's looking around for a soft beginning so that they can bring their people into focus. Steve Spurrier, of course, has taken a lot of heat for running up the score.
Yeah.
But Steve's answer is, I can't say to my third-string players, if that's what they are, not to go out and try.
Yeah.
And he played everybody he had available to play against Central, and still it was dreadfully lopsided. I hate to see it. It's demoralizing for the team that gets the beating. There's nothing good coming from it for the loser.
Yeah.
And but then on the other hand, you take what the Wolverines are doing this year. I mean, they opened with Colorado. Then they play Baylor, and then they play Notre Dame. By the time they get into their Big Ten schedule, they could be 1-2 and be a very good football team.
Absolutely. Let's talk while we have the time about this CD-ROM that's now available. It's available everywhere, and I'm going to get it today, as a matter of fact. ABC Sports College Football, Heroes of the Gridiron, an opportunity for you to profile, I think, 32 college football rosters, great stars, names, current players. Can I go fantasy football with this, Keith Jackson?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. You can do almost anything with it. There's 1,700 players, 32 universities. It's Windows only on the Internet now, which means that you can play a friend in Texas or California or Florida or wherever. So you don't just sit there and bang away against a computer. You've got a chance to put Tom Harmon in the backfield behind the 1990 Michigan offensive line. How would you like that? You make your own team if you desire.
And then your vocal combination will work in concert with that. You could actually have Harmon taking a snap from a Joe Vitale.
Yes.
Amazing.
Had a comment from Greasy on it. So we've spent long hours of recording names and phrases and all of that stuff in order to bring all of this into play so that you can even get yourself a halftime summary from John Saunders. Wouldn't it be fun to have Michigan playing Tennessee?
Yeah, indeed.
I want to see that. I'd like a piece of that action. Wouldn't you? You get 106,000 at both places.
It would be absolutely ideal. You had a chance to go home 2 weeks ago and do a play-by-play there. How did you enjoy that, going back to your native Washington? You enjoyed that? I
enjoyed it a lot. Of course, we have been very active with the old university in foundations and fundraising and alumni centers and things like that. But it's still a country school over in the middle of the wheat country on the Washington-Idaho state line there. But it was fun to go back and do a game, and it turned out to be a pretty good football game, as a matter of fact.
Do you get tired of this, Keith? Are you thinking, is there an end point in your broadcast career where you could possibly go on to other projects but not have the rigors of week in, week out play-by-play?
Well, I think probably this season and one more ought to do it. Looking at 70, and I think that's long enough.
I don't. I certainly.
Well, there are things that I have no great plans for the future. I have no interest in writing a book, frankly. I just don't. Maybe if I have all that time and I can sit on my porch in British Columbia long enough and get tired of looking at the boats come and go, I'll write down some of the anecdotes. But I am not interested in, nor have I ever been in kiss and tell stuff. That's just not my thing, and I would never, ever, ever consider it.
Of all the memories you have, there must be one or two that really stand out. Could you share that with us?
Well, there are lots of them that go far beyond the football stadium. One of the great moments was 1958 when I did the first live sports broadcast from the Soviet Union to the United States on radio. Mm. And we were in Moscow out on the Kimkenska Reservoir for a crew race, rowing. And that was the same week that they stoned our embassy and they were sinking ships in the Suez Canal. American Marines were in Lebanon. It was a very difficult little time in the world, and there I was, along with some 700 other Americans, wandering around in the heart of the Soviet Union. But it worked. We did the broadcast and came home. And but it was pretty exciting stuff back in those days, especially for a young fellow.
We look forward to seeing you on Saturday here in Ann Arbor, actually up the road a piece, but 12 noon. Continued good luck, and thanks so much for joining us, Keith Jackson.
Thank you, Ken.
You can subscribe to the Ken Calvert Show podcast on Apple iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. It's also available by going directly to www.thekencalvertshow.com. You can reach Ken at kencalvertpodcast@gmail.com. The preceding program is the property of Ken Calvert and may not be rebroadcast without the written permission of Ken Calvert.